The wind screamed across the empty winter road as Officer Daniel Reeves steered his patrol car through the pre-dawn darkness, the tires cutting slow tracks through the fresh snow. It was one of those mornings when the world looked frozen in time, when the silence felt heavy enough to crush a man's breath. And yet, as he rolled forward, something broke that silence, something faint, something desperate. A sound almost swallowed by the storm. A crying whimper. A sound so raw and trembling that it didn't feel human. It felt like pain calling for help. Daniel slowed the vehicle, leaning forward, scanning the thick swirl of white ahead. He had heard many things during his 10 years on the force, sirens, gunshots, screams, but never anything like this. Something inside him tightened. Something inside him already knew that whatever was waiting in the snow was not going to be easy to face. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and saving innocent lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps these stories reach more hearts. As he stepped out of the car, the cold slammed into him like a wall. Snowflakes stuck to his lashes, and the wind burned his skin. But there it was again. A weak, strangled whine. He followed the sound, his boots crunching through layers of untouched snow, the glow of his flashlight trembling as he approached the side of the road. Then he saw them, shapes curled in the snow, small and unmoving. And beside them, tied brutally to a wooden post with a thick rope cutting into her fur, was a German shepherd mother, frost clinging to her muzzle, her body shivering uncontrollably. Daniel froze. For a moment, the world truly did stop. The mother dog lifted her head slowly, as if the motion itself was too heavy to bear. Her eyes were not filled with aggression, fear, or even instinctive caution. They were filled with something far worse, defeat. A kind of silent resignation he had only ever seen in victims who had suffered too long without hope. Around her, 3 tiny puppies lay half buried in the snow, each barely breathing, their fur stiff with ice and tiny patches of blood near their paws. Daniel's throat closed. He felt every muscle in his body clench as the reality washed over him. Whoever had left them here, had meant for them to die. He dropped to his knees without thinking. The snow soaked instantly into his uniform, but he didn't care. The cold didn't matter. Only the little lives in front of him did. He touched the first puppy, cold as stone, but its chest twitched with the faintest rise. The second puppy's heartbeat was so weak he had to press 2 fingers gently to find it. The third, he thought it wasn't breathing at all until a tiny, fragile gasp slipped out like a whispered plea not to be forgotten. The mother dog tried to move, tried to shield her babies with her body despite her own injuries. The rope pulled taut and her legs trembled violently. She whimpered, but not for herself, for them. Daniel felt his eyes sting with tears he fought to hold back. Police officers weren't supposed to break down. They weren't supposed to cry. But he did. Because this was cruelty beyond anything he could understand, and because this mother dog had still fought, still endured, still held on for the sake of her puppies. He pressed a shaking hand against her side, whispering soft reassurance even though he knew she couldn't understand his words. But she understood his tone. Her trembling eased just a little. He grabbed his pocket knife, cutting the rope as quickly as his frozen fingers allowed. As soon as the last strand snapped, the mother collapsed sideways, not from fear, but from relief so profound it seemed to knock the strength out of her body. He gathered the puppies into his arms quickly, tucking them inside his coat for warmth. The mother dog struggled to rise, refusing to let her babies out of her sight, so he lifted her too, cradling her heavy frame as best he could. He wasn't a big man, but in that moment, adrenaline made him stronger than he'd ever been. He rushed them to the patrol car, blasting the heater, wrapping the dogs in emergency blankets from the trunk. The puppies were still barely alive, their shallow breaths hauntingly slow. The mother dog stared up at him, eyes glassy, breath shaky, yet she never stopped watching her babies even for a second. At the vet's office, every second felt like an hour. The vet and 2 assistants rushed the puppies into a back room, starting IVs, warming pads, oxygen. The mother was treated for cuts on her legs and signs of extreme hunger and exposure. Daniel paced the hallway outside, his heart pounding in his chest, guilt gnawing at him like claws. What if he had been too late? What if he had mistaken the sound? What if he had driven past? He couldn't bear the thought. The storm grew stronger outside, beating against the glass, but inside the clinic time stayed painfully still. He checked the clock. 2 hours. 3. The vet emerged finally, his expression serious but no longer grim. "They're fighters," he said quietly. "All 3 puppies, they're alive." Daniel's legs nearly buckled. The mother dog was brought to see her babies once they were stable enough, and the moment her eyes fell on them, alive, tiny chests rising and falling, she whimpered, lowering her head to nuzzle each one. It was a sound so pure, so heartbreakingly grateful, that Daniel turned away to wipe tears he couldn't stop this time. But this was only the beginning. The vet explained that the mother dog was dehydrated, exhausted, and emotionally stressed. The puppies were severely chilled, malnourished, and needed constant monitoring. They would require days under medical observation. Weeks of care afterward. Daniel didn't hesitate. He covered all the expenses up front. He didn't ask for reimbursement. He didn't call the shelter. He didn't think twice. He simply said, "Do whatever it takes." Over the next few days, Daniel visited the clinic every chance he got, before shifts, after shifts, even during meal breaks. The mother dog began to recognize him, her tail giving weak, hopeful thumps whenever he entered. The puppies slowly regained strength, their cries growing louder, their eyes opening more each day. The staff began smiling again. Even the vet admitted that he had doubted the puppies would survive the first night, but now they were proving everyone wrong. Daniel brought toys, blankets, and treats, though the mother dog didn't take food unless her puppies were stable and warm beside her. She watched them constantly, guarding them with a devotion that left Daniel speechless. But something else struck him deeply. The mother dog had wounds on her legs and paw pads that looked older than the snowstorm. She had bruises that hinted at abuse. She had a terrified flinch whenever someone reached too quickly near her. Whatever family she came from, they had not shown her kindness. And yet she showed nothing but love to her puppies. It broke Daniel's heart. He filed a report, but tracking down the person responsible for abandoning the dogs proved difficult. No microchips. No witnesses. No registered owners. The case went cold quickly. But Daniel's dedication did not. On the 5th day, the vet declared the puppies strong enough to move to a foster home. The mother dog, though still underweight, was recovering wonderfully. When Daniel walked in that afternoon, the mother dog hobbled toward him, resting her head against his leg with a trust that made his chest ache. He knelt down, gently stroking her fur as the puppies climbed over his boots. In that moment, he knew the truth. He wasn't going to be their rescuer for one day. He was going to be their rescuer forever. He filled out the adoption papers that same night. Bringing them home was overwhelming in the best way possible. The mother dog, whom he named Aurora because she had survived the darkest night of her life, moved carefully around his living room, sniffing each corner, occasionally glancing back at him as though checking if this piece was real. The puppies, Hope, Bristle, and Snow, quickly turned the home into a tiny storm of chaos and joy. Aurora slept by their basket, always alert, always protective. But for the first time, she also let herself rest deeply. Daniel noticed she no longer whimpered in her sleep. She no longer startled at loud noises. She began eating well, playing gently, and walking with her head a little higher each day. Weeks passed. The puppies learned to run, bark, tumble, and wrestle. Aurora gained weight and strength. Daniel's house became filled with laughter, barks, and the kind of love he hadn't realized he'd been missing for years. But the moment that sealed everything, truly sealed it, came late one evening when Daniel was sitting on the couch, exhausted after a double shift. Aurora padded over silently, rested her head on his knee, and looked up at him with calm, warm eyes that held gratitude deeper than words could express. Then she did something she had never done before. She lifted her paw and placed it gently on his chest. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't a command. It was trust. Complete, unconditional trust. Daniel finally let himself cry, not out of sadness, but out of awe. Because he realized then that she wasn't just thanking him for saving her life. She was telling him he had become her family. The man who once thought he needed nothing beyond his badge and routine now had 4 new reasons to rush home every day. His life, once quiet and predictable, had become full again, full of purpose, warmth, and joy. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it, and subscribe. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive.